Still waiting in line? Again? That's time you'll never get back. Save time and money with Stamps.com. Over 4 million businesses have skipped the line with Stamps.com. Join them to save up to 90% off carrier rates from your computer or phone right now. Print postage for certified mail, registered mail, and packages in seconds. Then schedule a pickup right from your home or office. For a limited time, go to Stamps.com and use code PODCAST for a free welcome gift. Taxes and fees apply.
Welcome to The Bridge, the show that bridges the gap between Eastern and Western medicine, science and spirituality, physical and energetic health. If you're seeking to heal from within, ultimately achieving the pinnacle of health and well-being for your mind, body, and spirit, then rest assured, this show is tailored just for you. I'm Dr. Elizabeth Rogers. I'm a heart-centered, Harvard-trained epidemiologist, researcher, medical intuitive, and transformational health and longevity doctor. Basically, I find the clues that every other health practitioner misses because they're looking in the wrong place. Welcome back to The Bridge, a transformational health podcast with me, Dr. Elizabeth Rogers. Hey, podcast family. I'm really excited because right now I'm welcoming you not just to episode 40, but to our very first stormy episode. And for whatever reason, my guides want me to keep it natural in here and not add any lighting. So if you ever get to watch this video, which you eventually will, then you're going to see the difference, So we're keeping it stormy style today. You know why? Because we like to keep it real here on this show. I always want this to be a place where we can just come and just exhale and just be ourselves, because there's enough bullshit and fake out there in the world right now, isn't there? And also, if you're in the Northern Hemisphere, specifically in the United States or Canada, as you're listening to this, happy 4th of July or Independence Day if you're in the US and celebrating, and happy Canada Day to all the Canadian loves up there. So let's dive in. We're going to talk about animals and pets. So there's a personal and scientific research component to this show today, because I know that if you've been listening to this show for any length of time, or you know me at all, then you know that I adore animals, and you know that I have a sweet little cat called Peanut, who my husband and I just absolutely adore. She's totally our little daughter. And you know what? I'm going to press pause and open up the door just in case she wants to come in and pay us a little visit during this episode. Oh my God, is my intuition on fire or what? So I pressed pause because I thought maybe Peanut wants to come visit. No joke. I opened the door. I just sat back down, started recording again, and here she is. It's our sweet little Pea. Honey, do you want to come up here? Do you? I hope you can hear her sweet purring. Can you say hi to the podcast family? Can you say hi to the family on the show? Can you tell them how much you are adorable and loved? You can? Can you tell them about how you came from the magical peanut patch in the sky? I don't know if you can hear her, so I won't keep going, but she's doing her little paws on my chair and she's getting all excited. So she may pop up on my lap and hopefully I can catch her voice better on the mic here. But she's just our sweet little daughter and we adore her. And I've mentioned her from time to time. And she just turned 10 years old not long ago. And I felt like it's time to dedicate a show to our little Peanut. You're pumped, aren't you, P? Yeah, she's really excited. She's shaking her tail and purring and like rubbing all over the chair. Well, Peanut is here. So clearly we are ready to roll on this show. So I want to tell you today Peanut's story about where she came from. She's so excited. She's rubbing her little cheeks now. And I want to talk to you about pets and animals, and do they really affect our health and well-being, and what does the science say about that? So let's dive in. Now, I wanted to do a little research for you all, of course, because I'm a nerd and I am a research scientist. So I really want to talk to you about all of this. And I want to fill you in on some of the statistics as it stands today in July of 2024 around animals and pets in our lives. Now, here in the United States, there is an association called the American Pet Products Association, or the APPA. They conduct a national pet owner survey. And according to their 2023-2024 survey, about 66% of households in the United States, which would be about 86.9 million families, own a pet. Now, they conducted their first survey back in 1988, and at that time, about 56% of households owned a pet. Now, who are our pets? Now, in the United States, dogs are the most popular, followed by cats, freshwater fish, reptiles and birds, rabbits, pet poultry like chickens, and horses. And I love all kinds of animals, so I would love to hear all about your pets, whether you own them or not, whether there are animals you just love to interact with. I want to know about your animals, your pets. I want to hear their special stories. If you have unique pets that aren't on this list, then I want to know all about them. So please send pictures, share your stories. I want to always celebrate our animals because they are part of our family here on planet Earth. Now, who are our pet owners? Well, millennials tend to make up the largest percentage of pet owners, about 33%, followed by Gen X and the baby boomers. I have had lots of pets throughout my life, and they've all been really, really special to me. When I was born, my family, my mom and dad, had a dog called Buffett. She was a very, very sweet, very, very sweet Cocker Spaniel. And until my brothers were born, it was just Buffett and I. And I still really vividly remember when she passed away and how much that impacted my family and particularly my parents, because Buffett was my mom's wedding gift to my dad. So she was really special. After Buffett, we had another Cocker Spaniel called Abby. I particularly had a special bond with Abby, and I was with her when she transitioned to spirit, which is my way of saying passed away, because nobody dies. We just change forms. But I was there with her. I was the one that went with her when she was put to sleep. And I'll never forget that. I was with her. I can picture it like yesterday, just holding her little paw. And watching her take her last breath was just something I'll never forget. And it was really challenging. I love her so much. But remember, they're still with us. They abso-freaking-lutely are. Now, after those two Cocker Spaniels, some cats started entering my family's life, and I particularly had an affinity for cats and still do. And our first cat was Pico, who I begged for. And my dad either told me if I got like straight A's on my report card or some kind of award in school that I was striving for, that I could have a kitten, because my next door neighbors had just had kittens. And of course, I got the kitten, right? I was going to do whatever I needed to do. But Pico was really special. He was this fluffy orange cat. And special story quick about Pico. He lived a very long and high quality life. And when he was younger and I was still in high school, he started getting sick all the time. And I couldn't understand why. I took him to a vet who told me that there was nothing they could do for him and just to let him go. Took him to a second vet. They told me the same thing. Took him to a third vet. Guess what? He just had diabetes. That was it. So just like people, we gave him insulin shots once a day. He would even climb up on your chest and lay down because he knew it was like time for his medicine. And back to optimal health he went. So I've talked to you about the importance of pursuing multiple opinions and never stopping at one for your own health and well-being, but that certainly extends to our loved ones, including our pets. Just because one person says something doesn't mean that's it. We can hear a diagnosis or a prognosis, but we do not have to accept it. So Pico lived a really long life. I remember when he transitioned and I was in college, And I came home and laid on the floor of my bedroom with him until the end. And then we got puppies. My parents entered a new breed, which was miniature long haired dachshunds. They got a dachshund named Misty, who my dad was particularly attached to. And she had cancer and she did not get to live a very long life. And I know my dad, especially, but my family was devastated when we lost Misty. So after Misty came the girls, Ruby and Amber, who were sisters, litter mates, and they were also mini long haired dachshunds, and they were extremely special to us. And in fact, today is a shout out to them. I'm drinking out of a mug that my father got me as a gift one year for Christmas that has a picture of the two of them on it, and I will save it forever. And Ruby and Amber passed away not long ago. I think it was about 2 years ago now, and they went within 6 months of each other. And that was very, very, very hard for my entire family. And now my parents have 3 litter mates, Barnes and Noble, because my mom loves books. Those are the girls, and Winston, who is the sweetest little boy in the entire world. I'm obsessed with him. Oh, he's such a sweet, sweet, sweet little boy. And they're just little babies. So they're the new additions to my family, my larger family. I don't get to see them very often because we're not in the same state. But cats, we've had lots in my family. There was Kitty, who was just a kitten, and we just called her Kitty, and that was her name. And she was the sweetest, sweetest little kitty. And after Kitty, we adopted a cat who looked just like him. And that was the same year that I had my near-death experience. I remember vividly because I had gotten a break between surgeries and I was home from the hospital and I felt terrible. So to cheer me up one night, my mom took me to the animal shelter and we ended up bringing Ralph home. Ralph eventually got a brother named Randy. Ralph and Randy are a shout out to the brothers on the movie A Christmas Story, if you're familiar. So we love that. And unfortunately, Ralph left us not long ago, but we still have Randy around and he's kind of like our little old man. So those are the pets in my family. My pet history is I used to have 3 cats, and that included Peanut. When it was my 21st birthday, I was surprised by my roommate in college with a little kitten. This tiny little black kitten came running into my bedroom, and he sat down at my feet and looked up and meowed, and I burst into tears. And that is how McKee came into my life. And McKee was my best friend. He was really special. He only lived 12 years. And I miss him every day. He used to give human hugs like a person. He was more like a person and a dog than he was like a cat. He loved to play fetch. He loved to go on car rides. When I would take him anywhere, including the vet, I never put him in a carrier because he was so chill. Dogs could come right up to him and like sniff in his face. And he would just sit there like, what's up? And McKee was with me through my near-death experience, through the hardest, most challenging times of my life. And when I had McKee, my relationship before my husband entered my life, and that was my emotionally abusive relationship, which we'll talk about on another episode sometime. But he knew my love for cats. He and I went to the pet store one day, and there was this sweet little black cat called Walter. Well, we named him Walter, and we brought him home. That's how I got number 2. But let's talk about Peanut now, because she's all we've got left. And we adore her. And this episode is all for her. Now she's just sitting here on the windowsill, gazing out like a little sweetheart. So, Peanut, first of all, where did she come from? I believe it was a magical peanut patch in the sky and or fairyland. Or the magical peanut patch in the sky is the fairy dimension, and that is where she came from. But it's something like that. But where did she physically appear from, and how did I find her? Well, I was, like I said, with my ex at the time, and I was just at home one day after work, and my boyfriend calls me and he's like, "You're never going to believe what I found. I have a surprise." And I'm like, "Tell me, tell me." So he says, "Look at your text messages." And I look at my text messages and I see this teeny, teeny, tiny, tiniest little tiny black kitten in a box. And I immediately said, "Bring her to me." But how did she get into the box? Well, my ex worked at a place where they worked on cars and sent them to auctions and things like that. And he's there and he's at work and it was storming. And the place where he worked was north of the city of Pittsburgh. So it was a little more of a rural area. And where he worked was surrounded by acres and acres of just wilderness and woods and undeveloped land. So it's pouring down rain, storming extremely hard, like lightning, thunder, downpour, that kind of storm. And he said he was out back, out in the back of the garage. And I had been there before, so I know exactly where he was talking about. And out behind the back, there was just woods back there. And he said, "I'm standing back here and I just heard this little like meow, like this teeniest little meow in the middle of the woods." And he said, "So I'm just looking into the woods." And he said, "And all of a sudden I see this tiny little thing emerge from the middle of the woods in the pouring down rain in a storm in June, in the middle of June." So he puts her in the box and I say, "Bring her to me immediately." So he does that. And that's how Peanut officially and permanently enters my possession, which of course was exactly where she wanted to go. She knew what she was doing. Did you hear that? I think that was her saying, "Yes, I did, Mom. I knew exactly what I was doing. You're a smart girl, aren't you?" I hope you heard that. It was a very authentic response. That's right. We're two smart ladies, aren't we, honey? Well, that's right. So she comes into the box. She goes into the box and comes home to me in the car. And, she came out of the woods. She's tiny. I can tell she's so small. She should not have been away from her mother. And so, of course, I immediately put her into a tiny little carrier. You remember this, honey? And I drove her straight to the emergency animal hospital that was open 24 hours a day. And she was so tiny and her eyes were so big. And, she was sick. She had a bunch of infections. They gave me medicine, sent me home, and she was so tiny that I had to bottle feed her. So, of course, I was very excited because, as you know, I love tiny things. So this was just me all over it. And I needed to do this. And I had to love this little thing and I had to take care of it. And I loved getting tiny little bottles at the pet store and formula. And I would make her little formula and fill it in this tiny little bottle. And I would hold her in my little palm of my hand and just bottle feed her and give her medicine. And I just took care of her. She lived in her own little separate bedroom where I would go and nurse her and take care of her until she got well enough to be around her new brothers. And she was incredible. When McKee started declining and I couldn't even figure out what was wrong with him, which it took me too long to figure out that he was going blind, she would guide him around the house. He would get stuck in corners. She would go get him out. She would help him find the food. She would lay with him and just put her little paws on his paws. I have a picture of it. And she's just the tiniest little sweetheart. And we are in love with her. And my husband and I just adore her. She loves to chat. So I really hope that my mic picked up her chatting with us today. She loves to chat, but she's a very, very timid, scaredy cat, quite frankly. And she really only trusts and loves my husband and I. So you'll get to hear her, but if you ever came over and wanted to visit her, she would hide from you, but she'll talk to you on the phone. That's That's an appropriate distance for her. But I just have to tell you that I don't know what I would do without an animal around. Peanut is how one of the ways that I have gotten through what's now going on to 7 months of pain and suffering. And she's also who's been there for me every time I've been down. When I'm having a hard day, if I just happen to have a day where I have a migraine, if I don't feel well, no matter what, she just always knows. And she's always there for me. And we don't give animals enough credit. They understand us just because they don't speak words like we do. They understand exactly what we're saying. They are very, very intelligent and very, very intuitive. They're not like us, right? They don't have this ego, conscious talking, voice thinking, mind going. They don't have that stuff going on in their heads that sometimes really clouds the connection. They're just pure, unfiltered, unfettered connection to source. And I think that is so special and amazing. And, yesterday I was laying on the couch, and when she knows I need something, or I'm not okay, or I'm in pain, or I'm just down, she's right there on my lap. And this one's for Peanut. I really, really love her. And I know for a fact that she has positively impacted not just my quality of life, but my health and well-being. I know that for a fact about every pet I've ever owned. That's why I've had them. They help create an environment where I feel optimally healthy and well, where my quality of life is as high as it can be. They contribute to that, and that is important. But I wonder if you're wondering, what does the research say? Well, that's what I'm going to tell you about. Now, despite what Google or any internet search tells you, the science is actually inconclusive. This is something I really want to work with you all on over the course of this podcast. There's a lot of misinformation out there, and a lot of science gets misinterpreted, inappropriately translated, and used against you, used to manipulate you, used to market to you, instead of just telling you the honest answers to questions, because that's really what science is. It's just a process. It's a process of asking questions. I think that the definition of it has been very confused and forgotten. But I'm here to remind you, it is just a process of asking questions. Now, there's a lot of science, but not a lot of good evidence that pets benefit our physical and mental health. Many studies have been done to examine the possible health benefits of animals, and most of them have used improper methodology. And there are many ways in which studies use improper methods. One example is not having a comparison group or a control group, or not having enough statistical power to claim a significant finding due to the size of the study population, among other reasons. I'm not going to get too sciencey on you, so don't worry. We will talk about this over the course of this show. So I really want to help educate you and empower you so that you can read, research, read what you look up on the internet, and see through the bullshit, read between the lines, and know what you can and can't trust. But I'll always remind you that what you can and should trust first and foremost is you and that amazing intuition of yours, no matter what. Now, an animal behavior researcher by the name of James Serpell, I hope I'm pronouncing that last name correctly, started studying this potential positive effect of pets on health, or what some scientists call the pet effect, in the early 1980s, when he noticed that people's relationships with pets were changing to be more like family, and that people were spending much more money on pets. So basically, he started doing this research because he observed this and he just wondered why. And that's science. It's a process of asking questions. So He basically just started doing research to answer the question, why? He actually gave us some of the first published data suggesting new pet owners had a measurable reduction in minor health benefits in an influential research study he did back in 1991. And in this study, what he did was compare new dog owners to cat owners and to non-pet owners. Since then, researchers have published hundreds, if not more, of studies comparing pet owners to non-pet owners. Now, you might be thinking, well, that sounds like a good study, right? We have a comparison group. We're comparing pet owners to non-pet owners. Well, of course, what I want to highlight to you is there will be differences, right, between pet owners and non-pet owners. And herein lies one of the problems with this specific research and with a lot of research in general. The groups you are comparing in any study need to be similar or as similar as possible, except for the thing you want to study. This way, we know if that thing really was the thing that made a difference, right? However, people who have pets are going to be inherently different than people who don't, right? So, in those types of studies, it means it's like we're comparing apples to oranges, and we need to compare apples to apples in a study to know if owning a pet matters. So, do you see now why research in general, including this kind of research, can become tricky and not be as reliable as some may claim it to be? Now, a psychologist by the name of Hal Herzog, who has his own pets and openly admits they absolutely improve his quality of life, Hal has challenged this field of research for many years because he questions whether owning pets really makes people healthier. He agrees that pets have real benefits. He has claimed many times, like I said, that they absolutely improve quality of life, but the point he's perhaps trying to make is that perhaps there are intangible benefits that we just can't measure. And with that, Mr. Hal, I abso-freaking-lutely agree. And this is where science can't look at everything, at least not here on planet Earth, the way that humans have developed it to date. The truth is that the results of this research about whether or not pets positively impact our health, the results have been mixed. That's the truth, which I want you to remember, that even though the results of the research are mixed, this does not mean that something does or does not improve or enhance your health. It's just a series of asking questions and getting answers, period. Science has gotten itself on quite a pedestal, hasn't it? But I think we need to knock science back down a little bit and remind science that all you are is a series of asking questions and getting answers. That's all. Mr. Science, I'm talking to science like it's a person. If you're listening, just so you know, I've got your number. Now, earlier on this episode, I shared that methods are one problem with existing research, but funding is an issue too, and we'll get more into this later on, but just not on this episode. So when you're evaluating a research study or you're reading it, I encourage you to go back to the original source and pay attention to where the funding for that particular study or research is coming from. And two important notes: do not assume that government funding means it is not corrupt. And don't assume that industry funding means that it is corrupt. We'll talk about this more in other episodes, like I said. Now, studies done on veterans and the benefits of things like service animals have absolutely shown in research that animals do have benefits for our veterans. And here We can do better methodology because we can compare groups of veterans to groups of veterans to see how the animals impact their health in a study. Some research on service dogs has shown very, very clear benefits, including a recent controlled but not randomized trial. And this gets me excited because when real, good, ethical science shows me something, whether it's answering the question in the way I expected it to or not, I just get excited. So now, but here, it's important to remember that these benefits only apply to veterans, right? These studies were done in veterans. So the only population of people we can generalize these results to are veterans. Now, these benefits are not then necessarily typical or applicable to average pet owners. We would have to repeat a study like this in average or typical pet owners to determine the possible benefits. But here's where we can say that science cannot always give us the answers. Self-report data, which is data that's just like surveys, me asking you some questions, interview data. Self-report data shows that many people absolutely report that animals and pets improve their mental and physical health and well-being. Now, while some scientists will say this is, quote, soft data, that's qualitative and not quantitative, I say, who the fuck cares? Why do those scientists discount that kind of data? And if you are one of those scientists listening, I would love for you to reach out to me to tell me why you discount that kind of data. And I'd love for you to maybe come on this show and talk to me about that. Why do we discount the kind of data that comes from us? I have always thought about this. This has always pissed me off as a scientist. So I'm here to say to all the scientists and researchers listening, all of y'all who say quantitative all the way, you're wrong. And to all of y'all who say qualitative all the way, you're wrong. Look at the big picture. It all matters. And again, science is just a process of asking questions. So wouldn't you think that you'd want the best answer to any question possible? And in order to get the best answer to any question possible, from my perspective, that means that you want to get every perspective possible. So if we're only looking at the numbers, the statistics, the quantitative data, then you're only looking at one piece of the puzzle, just like doctors who refuse to look at the whole equation, right? Because you are energy and you are physical matter, right? We've talked about this on the show. But a lot of doctors or health practitioners only focus on the fact that you are a physical human being with a physical body, ignoring the fact that you are actually mostly non-physical. And we don't even talk shit about that. We do not even address it or acknowledge it. But then we've got practitioners who focus all on the energy and the spiritual, and that's so fucking good too. But where is the practitioner who considers it all? That's why I'm here. That's why I created my health and longevity practice, because where is the place where we can go, dump all the pieces out and ask somebody to please just look at this all with me, help me put this puzzle together, and talk to me about considering all the puzzle pieces that I've got here to deal with. How can I just be healthy and create longevity for as long as possible? Don't you want to talk about that? Because I'm ready to talk about that. When you're ready to talk about that, you better sign up and come get an appointment with me, because I am all here, baby, for all of it. So, shout out to all you scientists out there. It's time for change. Let's do better. Seriously, let's do better. This is why when I was working on my doctorate, I took pride in the fact that I was called the, quote, non-traditional student. That was one of the, quote, nice nicknames they gave me, because traditionally, epidemiologists like to look at quantitative data, numbers, things we can measure, right? The tangible. It's more like behavioral and community health scientists that like to look at the qualitative. Well, I had both of those departments in my school, and so I bridged the gap between them. I wanted to be a mixed methods scientist, which is exactly what I am, because I wanted to learn how to do it all. because I wanted to be able to look at things from every angle possible. I don't know how to do it any other way. I think it's cool that there's lots of people that like to look at the little pieces and the minutia and the very specific siloed subjects and topics. And we need that, and that's important. But we also need this, the both and, the let's look at it all. So it all matters. Science is just a process of asking questions. And I would say the next time you get to spend time with an animal or your pet, Peanuts meowing, you decide how they make you feel, and fuck what the science says, because whatever you feel is real. And Peanut, we love you so much. This one's for you, sweetheart. Thank you all so much for being here today. This was a really fun episode for me. I've been super excited to record it for you all. I hope you all can feel the love that I'm radiating out to all of you today. I want to hear your animal stories and anything you want to share, whether it's pictures, stories, just sentiments, anything. Feel free to reach out, send us an email, anything. Love to connect with you all. And remember that the journey to create and sustain optimal health and longevity is always an ongoing one. So until next time, stay inspired, stay aligned, stay connected, and keep on shining as brightly as you can. Thanks for listening to today's episode of The Bridge, a transformational health podcast with Dr. Elizabeth Rogers. To learn more about my work and ways you can get support to transform your own health, head to my website, drelizabethrogers.com. Don't forget, Rogers has a D and a G. You can find a link in the show notes too. I hope you can feel the big boost of positive energy I'm sending all around right now. Can't wait to connect with you on the next episode.